Listen, I know I said I wouldn't make more Mega Evolutions, but do you want more Mega Evolutions? It's 3 AM Kyepha, please sleep instead.
Well, if that's what the people want. I have made so many videos making Mega Evolutions that I have had to make a whole new playlist just to put them all in. After my last video making Mega Evolutions, I did try out some more designs off screen, such as Jirachi, Linoon Z, and Linoon A, and also Pecharunt when the DLC came out. I think they're pretty neat. You guys have been requesting that I make even more Mega Evolutions for videos, and I really like making them. I did say last year I probably wouldn't make any more in the future, but honestly, that's just because I thought you'd get tired of me making them, which obviously you're not, so here we go. I think it would be nice to give Mega Evolutions to a handful of Pokemon that I think really deserve to get one, and somehow still didn't. When I first started to make this video, the initial idea was to make Megas for underrated Pokemon, and I saw a comment suggesting Mantine gets one, so that's who I started off with, but sadly, it just didn't happen. I'm really bad at drawing this Pokemon, and I think I really just need to practice it a bit more before I can do anything really cool with it. In my downtime, I do like to practice drawing Pokemon that I either never draw or think are too hard to draw. That way I can get better at drawing them. I don't know, crazy how that works, I suppose. Mantine is yet to be one of those Pokemon. Normally when I go into these designs, I already have a note or a doc full of how I want the design to look, and I might even scribble down typings, abilities, and possible stats for form changes. With this one, I went in completely blind, and it really shows. Oops. I carried on for as long as I could. I had the idea that there could be 2 Remoraid under the fins instead of 1, and I made some parts, like the tail, larger and more bushy, I guess. Ultimately, I got near the end of my attempt, and I just wasn't seeing any vision, and it was pretty late at night, so I was too tired for attempt number 2, and thus ends any further attempt for Mega Mantine in this video. Apologies for those of you who wanted to see this guy come to life. Right now, it just wasn't meant to be. Not to worry, we are officially starting things off with Luxray, who I believe is a very common candidate for a Pokemon well deserving of a Mega Evolution. The past was grim when it came to a potential Mega Evolution for Gen 4 and 5 Pokemon. To be fair, we were in Generation 6 when they debuted, so the DS generations were fairly recent at this time. To my understanding, we only got 5 Sinnoh Megas and 1 Unova Mega until literally last year. Wild times. So whilst it is true that Luxray never got anything back then, I don't think it was truly wanted either all those years ago. ZA sort of changed everything. We got Gen 4 and 5 Nachos in ZA. Why is it that Staraptor gets to Mega Evolve but Luxray still can't? It also has a really interesting lore that I think would be well adapted into a new form, so if Game Freak won't make it, then I will. Luxray is a quadruped, which if you've been here for a while, you know I can't draw very well at all. But that won't stop me. I will do everything I possibly can so that this Mega Evolution can live. It's a brand new day. I've just had my coffee, and then another one on the side. I am living on the edge of glory, otherwise known as caffeine withdrawal. We have all of the 2D renders of the new Mega Evolutions introduced in this generation, which really helps for referencing not only poses, but just how the current art style looks in terms of how Pokemon are being composed with their artwork. We have some really dynamic ones like Absol Z, Chestnut, and even Starmie, but then we also have some more straightforward posing as seen in Emboar, Barbaracle, and Raichu X and Y. Fun fact, I showed my mum Raichu Y as an example of Mega Evolution, but I told her it was Pikachu, you know, because she doesn't really know many Pokemon, so I figured it would be easier for her to understand the concept. She then looked at it and said, "That's pretty cool, but it looks more like Raichu." How does she know who that is? Anyways, back to the point I was making. There's no structure in this video. You subscribe for that. Don't act surprised. So using these references, I had an easier time making my Luxray art not only more dynamic, but also more fitting with the current 2D art style. I want this to fit in with the rest, you know? Because I have trouble drawing quads, I did do a very rough preliminary sketch and then another sketch over top with all the details I want to add onto the body. Most of the new details are just different stylizations of the fur, which better emphasize the electric typing. Once I had something solid drawn in, I started to play around with colors. The first style was all blue with some accent colors from the original form. I didn't vibe with it a whole lot, but I also didn't want to just make it look entirely like the original Luxray, so I settled on a half and half between the black fur and the blue fur. I also made the tuft of fur on its rear yellow. I wasn't done just there, however. You see, Luxray's whole thing is X-rays and X-ray vision. My idea is that Luxray's eyes will gleam gold and allow it to see flawlessly through any object, but as a side effect, its body will show the bones beneath its legs, which will illuminate and give away its position. So it has to rely on its speed whilst taking advantage of its sight. Originally, I drew the bones to be blue, but after a little more research with X-rays and some feedback from a couple of friends, I learned that the brighter blue/white imagery on X-ray feeds represent denser objects. Whilst bone is normally quite dense, I want my Mega Luxray to be quite fast, and thus have hollower and lighter bones that allow it to move faster. So I'll change the color of the bones in the official render. Before we get to see such artwork, however, it is time to settle a rivalry that has been going strong for many a generation. Time to quell the war that is between Zangoose and Seviper. Or maybe add fuel to the flames. We'll see how this turns out. Starting with Zangoose, I really believed that these two were going to get something way back when Oras was announced. However, we got Mawile in X and Y, so Sableye was given a Mega Evolution instead. I think if those two didn't get anything, then we'd for sure see it with Zangoose and Seviper. I'm not particularly knowledgeable with their whole beef, but it is to my understanding that Zangoose is the natural predator of Seviper. It is even immune to their poison, giving it the upper hand in battle. The Pokédex states that Zangoose assume a fearsome battle pose when it detects Seviper is nearby. They tend to hone their claws and their fur will flare up. It may even get down on all fours, but that's actually a rare occurrence, so I don't know. If you've seen that, let me know. My first attempt at a pose was this mobster style, walking up to the camera, cracking its knuckles, ready to tumble sort of thing. Now, personally, I do love this idea, and I will most likely keep it and try to make it work no matter what. Sadly, the way I want the claws to be drawn really just doesn't lend itself to such a pose, so next idea. I'm keeping the body language the same, but just recomposing the arms. I like to think that Zangoose are a little vain, so it might just be giving itself a little look in the mirror before it spreads out its reflective claws and swipes for an attack. I made sure to flare up its collar of fur, and I also redid its battle wounds, being the slashy red parts, into a new shape. The letter Z. Now don't get it wrong, this is not Mega Zangoose Z. It is merely just a reference to its own name, which begins with the same letter. Although I find it funny because when it looks at itself in its own reflection, it sees the letter S, a grueling reminder of who is truly responsible for its new form. Oh yes, we've got some lore happening. I'm a storyteller, what can I say? Once I had the design all drawn up, all I had left to do was color in the design, which was fairly straightforward. It looks pretty much the same as its original form, but I have given it an inversed eye color. The claws are also incredibly reflective as mentioned before, representing its new normal steel typing. This type allows it to have a new ability whilst retaining its immunity to Seviper's poison type moves. ... So that was Zangoose's side of the story, but what about Seviper? Something I find truly interesting about Mega Frostlass is the way it redistributes its body mass to become twice its original height. I want to make the same sort of thing happen with Seviper. I started with a simple line that helped me get its general body shape down. It's going to have a very similar mass to its original form, but that mass will, like Frostlass, be redistributed to make Seviper a lot more slender, but also much more taller. The blade on the end of its tail will also be a lot bigger. The reason for such a large blade is to be revealed later on. The head shape will remain the same as the regular Seviper. Again, it's much more slender, but its facial markings and positioning of features haven't changed at all. Like Frostlass, I also gave Seviper a horn, and its fangs have grown considerably. Drawing in the body markings was quite a boring task, not gonna lie. This artwork ended up being the longest to sketch and render purely because of how many lines I had to draw. Like, oh my goodness gracious, it was a never-ending task except for when it ended. In retrospect, I wonder if the markings needed to be much larger since they probably wouldn't have shrunk with the body, and they probably would have also appeared to be a lot longer, but I think it's okay. Many Mega Evolutions kind of just make shit up with some design elements, or they do have very fundamental changes in the Pokemon's biology for the sake of the design. Dare I mention Scrafty and how its eyes just completely shift position. position. I think if it serves the design well, then those little inconsistencies can be completely forgiven. Or, you know, just for me at least. I'll let you decide for yourself. Of course, I couldn't forget its battle wounds inflicted by the very ungracious Zangoose. Originally, the color was the same as Seviper, but I also wanted it to be part steel like Zangoose, although it barely looks steel type. So I made the blade the same color as Zangoose's claws, but it still wasn't enough. I just, I wasn't feeling it, So there was really only one more thing I could do, and I didn't record it. So you'll find out at the end of the video. I'm so sorry. Just as I'm scripting this, I have only realized now that I made alterations off camera. So this abrupt segue is not even planned. Not even a little bit. I have nothing left to say. Moving on. Alas, we have reached the mystic Pokemon itself, the desert spirit Flygon. For 3,000 grueling years, people have been asking for Mega Flygon. We truly thought we were gonna get one in ORAS, but alas, no Flygon. We truly thought we were gonna get it in ZA, but alas, no Flygon. We truly thought that in the ZA DLC, we would not get Mega Flygon. And we were right to think so. They didn't give it to us even then. Now, the scripture tells of a moment where Game Freak did attempt a Mega Flygon design back in the X and Y and ORAS days, but it never happened because they just couldn't come up with a good enough design. Over the past decade, we have seen many renditions of how this Mega Evolution could work. A very popular one is this Trapinch style Mega Flygon created by Battlefront, and shortly after that, another Trapinch style design was created by Glowing Shark. These are amazing, and I think with Megas such as Feraligatr and Raichu X and Y and Chimecho making strong references to their pre-evolved forms, it really fits. But I have to wonder, why hasn't anyone made it into a sand spirit, or even just some kind of ghostly dragon? I've done a fair amount of researching, and I haven't quite found a design that matches the vision that I have in mind. That's not to say, however, that one doesn't exist at all. I know how it is with search engines and social media. If an artwork doesn't do big numbers on the funny app, then it's unlikely that it will show up, even when people look for it. I know this all too well. Anyways, I'm going to fulfill my vision because I think this could be an interesting and refreshing take on Mega Flygon. So as usual, I started with a base drawing of its regular body shape. I want most of the design differences to be in the tail and antennae. I'm also again working on making the pose very dynamic. It's nearly giving Mega Dragonite, with the tail on all, which I'm on board with. The wings are fairly similar with just a little notch at the end to give them a slight difference. Many of the existing designs give it really crazy wings or just a lot of wings in general, so I'm working on sort of the opposite of that, just to kind of juxtapose my design with others. The main idea of this design is to play into its dub, the Desert Spirit. I want it to appear ghostly and have it shrouded within a shield of sand that it generates. I tried to draw a tail like this back when I made Paldean Fossil Pokemon with my Pyroraptor evolution, but it wasn't hidden, so I'm just glad to try it out again and have it actually land. The tail comes up and over the body and extends in an aurora-like veil effect. The colors are all completely different to original Flygon. I don't think any of them are the same exactly, albeit most of the change is just a difference in tone or shade rather than a completely different color altogether. I've made its tail tip quite thin and you'll be able to see its body lightly behind it. Once I blocked in all of that color, I went in and added some accents along the tail just like the original has, but I changed the colors to be the same as the tail tip. Lastly, I just changed the colors of some outlines and faded in some of the colors on the body to make gradients, and you know what? I think it's now time to finally check out all of the Mega Evolutions we've made. Let's come on. Let's take a look at what we've just done. Using the Luxray site, Luxray becomes Mega Luxray, the Gleam Eyes Pokemon, and an electric type. It has the ability See Gold, which ignores the evasiveness of all Pokemon on the battlefield at the expense of its own. In its Mega Evolved state, Luxray is able to see through practically any obstruction. This gives it a very strong advantage in battle. Mega Luxray cannot be hidden from as it can see through walls. The illumination from its bones help its prey flee before it can strike and attack. With the Zangoose site, Zangoose becomes Mega Zangoose, the cat ferret Pokemon and a normal steel type. It has the ability Toxic Boost, which powers up up physical attacks when poisoned. Strange, considering it is a steel type, but I digress. During a fatal battle with Seviper, a Zangoose lost its heart. It then formed into the Megastone it uses today. A Zangoose from a previous generation hated a Seviper so much that its own heart formed into a Megastone that would allow future Zangoose to overpower their common enemy. And using the Seviperite, you can get Mega Seviper, the Fang Snake Pokemon, and a Poison Steel type. It has the ability Corrosion, which allows it to poison Poison type and Steel type Pokemon, such as Mega Zangoose. Ever since the appearance of Mega Zangoose, the numbers of Seviper in the wild suffered. To combat this, scientists use Zangoosite to create an artificial Megastone for Seviper. The first Seviperite was artificially made in order to stop the species from going extinct. In this form, Seviper can shave metallic scales from its body and compress them into even more Megastones. Finally, with the Flygonite, you can get Mega Flygon, the Mystic Pokemon, and a Ground Dragon type. It has the new ability called Sand Shield. This ability makes Flygon immune to ice, rock, and ground type moves. Its tail ends in a perpetually flowing stream of sand that protects it from many attacks. Historians theorize the earliest sightings of Flygon were when it was in this mega evolved state. This is why it became known as the Desert Spirit. So those are some mega evolutions that I personally believe should have just happened from the get-go. Let me know your thoughts and if you want to see more in the future. Thank you so much for watching my video. Please subscribe to my channel. I upload new videos every single fakemon Friday or Saturday if you live in Mirage Island, just like me. And also thank you so much to our lovely channel members. I really appreciate all of your support. Alrighty. Oh, when am I going to land?